Before there was FM, satellite radio, shock jocks, or even stereo, there was AM radio. The signals were mono, and static competed with the voices of music.
You're tuned to WLS 890 Chicago, the Dick Biondi Show, temperature 56 degrees.
Skies and Moves, WABC New York, 23 to love hearing from you. Dedications making,
But in a golden era after World War II and before Vietnam, AM radio DJs developed a sound that would echo through the airwaves for generations and introduced America to a new kind of music called rock and roll.
Down on a horseman, right back down for Royal Crown.
Right now, it's old Phillips bringing Red Hot Blue coming through WHBQ, Memphis, Tennessee.
If you haven't got the Wolfman Jack iron on, send $1 to XERB, Hollywood, California.
They were the first to defy the establishment and push the boundaries of public taste. They were the Rock and Roll Invaders. In the early 50s, television, the new kid on the block, had radio on life support, and it wasn't expected to survive. In 1953, Robert Sarno, the future president of NBC Television, pronounced, "Radio is dead."
Radio was losing its central position in American entertainment life because television by 1948 was catching on throughout the country. And after the early 50s, television swept the nation. The ad agencies were shifting their clients over, the big clients over to TV, leaving radio to die.
Radio may have been dying, but radio's savior was stirring on the horizon. The rock and roll DJ, in his earliest form, was experimenting with a new sound called rhythm and blues, or R&B.
You women have heard of jalopies, you've heard the noise they make, but let me introduce my new Rocket 88. Yes, it's straight, just one way. Everybody likes my Rocket 88. Baby, we'll ride in style, moving all along.
Black Southern radio stations in the smaller markets were thriving on R&B. The primary rhythm and blues outlet was radio station WDIA in Memphis.
Starring Rufus and Jay on WDIA Memphis.
Here is the weather. Well, I'm ready.
WDIA, the country's first all-black programming station, went on the air in 1948. The station had an influential DJ lineup that included Nat D. Williams, a Memphis high school teacher who is considered one of the first black DJs in the South. Another was a feisty female DJ who was way ahead of her time, Martha Jean the Queen Steinberg, and at least two who would become even more renowned as performers, B.B. King and Rufus Thomas.
I'm young, I'm loose, I'm full of juice, I got the goose, so what's the use? We're feeling gay, though we ain't got a dollar. Rufus is here, so hoot and holla. Ha-ha, right here.
Like most black DJs of the time, Rufus Thomas worked 3 or more jobs to supplement his income while playing rhythm and blues records at WDIA and performing in front of an audience whenever he could.
Don't know how to do it, I'll show you how to walk it down. Come on now, come on, come on. Hey, hey, oh yeah, baby.
Right now, it's old Phillips bringing Red Hot Blue coming through WHBQ in Memphis, Tennessee.
Dewey Phillips was a white man who played rhythm and blues for his primarily black audience, and the first DJ to play an Elvis record. Phillips was there during the formative years of rock and roll, when black rhythm and blues met white rockabilly.
Yeah, she's a nice lady, you better believe it.
I think he was probably one of the original outlandish disc jockeys. I mean, he had these sayings, you know, that people used to laugh at, although they weren't necessarily funny. They were just so outlandish. He would say, he'd read a commercial, and he'd say, get you a wheelbarrow load of goober dust and ride it through the front door and tell them Phillips sent you. What does that mean? Well, nobody knew what it meant, but it was funny.
Just go on down there and get you a wheelbarrow load of mad dogs, run them through the front door and tell them Phillips sent you from Red Hot and Blue. What do you want, fella?
Is the stork flying over your house?
Oh, get out of here, Red Skelton. We got Blip Blop here. Blip Blop, Bill Doggett.
I think he probably got turned on to sepia music just from having listened to people like Rufus Thomas on WDIA. B.B. King was on WDIA at that time. I think from maybe the exposure to DIA, and he also visited Beale Street a lot, and Beale Street was frequented at that time mainly by the black people. There were pawn shops, there were blues clubs, and I think Dewey probably just went maybe out of curiosity to see what was going on, and then all of a sudden he thought, hey, I like this music. It really was nothing to see any number of other big-name people in the control room with Dewey. They just came to visit him, and they were friends of his, you know, and this sort of thing. But Dewey, as I said, was also extremely naive. I don't think Dewey knew how popular he was. If he had, number one, he would have demanded more money, and number two, he probably would have lost his ability to be Dewey Phillips straight.
They hear there's strange things happening every day by Sister Rosetta Thorne.
I feel like that he was one of the biggest influences on music totally in the world.
Personalities like Dewey Phillips paved the way for the next generation of AM DJs, including the man who brought rock and roll to America's teenagers and made plenty of enemies along the way.
Every day, on that last great Judgment Day.
This Sunday and Monday only at Circuit City's Red, White, and Blue sale, you'll get no interest till 2008 on all purchases $2.99 and up. Plus, all CDs are just $9.77 each. This Sunday and Monday only at Circuit City's Red, White, and Blue sale.
Trying to decide how to paint your house can really be frustrating. You can spend thousands of dollars and hire an expensive painting crew to do it for you. You could take your vacation time and paint it yourself the slow, old-fashioned way, or you can paint like a pro and spray it the fast and easy way with Wagner's amazing paint crew. The time-saving paint crew turns you into a one-person painting crew, so you get the job done in half the time while saving thousands of dollars and increasing the value of your home. You paint fast and you paint smart with Wagner's Paint Crew. Twice as fast as you could with a brush. Because the affordable paint crew has quality, high-performance features, like the kind you find on expensive professional sprayers, but for a fraction of the price. Take a look at this. The airless piston pump and professional-grade metal spray gun give you the same spray pattern found on high-priced contractor units, so you can spray in any direction. Down on decks, straight on walls and fences, and up under soffits. Wagner's lightweight paint crew has everything. It's portable, and it holds 2 gallons of paint for increased spraying time, and has a 25-foot high-pressure hose for greater maneuverability. You can't beat its versatility. Spray sealer and stain on decks, oil-based paint on concrete floors and brick walls, even today's thick exterior latex paint without having to thin it. The paint crew makes even the toughest jobs faster and easier.
Call or log on now to order Wagner's amazing paint crew for just 4 easy payments of only $49.99. The portable paint crew has high-performance features like an expensive professional sprayer, but for a fraction of the price. Try the versatile paint crew risk-free for 30 days. If it doesn't cut your painting time in half and save you money, send it back for a full refund of the purchase price. But wait, order now and you'll also receive the paint crew roller accessory and roller cover that quickly turns your paint crew sprayer into a power roller. Now you can also paint your interior walls like a pro in half the time. This $30 value is absolutely free when you order now. Whether you're painting your house, deck, fence, or floors, you'll paint fast and paint smart with Wagner's versatile paint crew. Call or log on now.
'73 was the year of big lies.
Well, I'm not a crook. When he said I am not a crook, it was pretty funny.
He has to be a liar. He's a politician.
Big hair.
You had the shag, you had the big old giant afro.
I just remember women going, ooh, that's sexy.
And big buildings.
They want to prove theirs is the biggest. That's all it's about.
Where were you? Yearbook 1973. Tonight at 10 on the Discovery Times channel.
Hello, everybody. Hi, all tonight. This is Alan Freed, the old king of the Moondoggers, and it's time...
Of all the pioneering AM DJs, none is given more credit for bringing rock and roll to a mass audience than Alan Freed. In 1950, Freed began playing rhythm and blues records in Akron, Ohio. He became a hit with the local teenagers and got a call from WJW in Cleveland. Cleveland was not wowed by Freed at first. He needed a good idea, and it came on a hypnotic guitar lick backed by a heavy bass beat, a sound created by black musicians. It was called sepia music, race music, and finally, rhythm and blues. Young African Americans picked up on it first, but like Freed, white teenagers were bored with big bands and bewildered by bop. They wanted something to shake their socks at. They found it in the back bins at the Leo Mintz Record Rendezvous.
Leo Mintz wanted somebody to go on the radio and play the records that he sold. He sold a lot of rhythm and blues records to Cleveland's black community, and he envisioned a program as one big commercial for his records. And he met Alan Freed somewhere along the line, and he knew that he was a disc jockey, and he said, hey, if I buy the time on the air, would you go on the air and play rhythm and blues records?
The Moondog Show!
Under a June moon in 1952, Freed put the needle down on Todd Rhodes' Blues for a Moondog, and something came over him. The newly energized DJ pounded on the telephone directory as rhythm and blues spewed from the radio like a contagious virus afflicting the young. Freed had caught a wave, a rocking, rolling wave.
When I first heard Alan Freed, I was coming to Cleveland and had not heard him before. I was coming in from Pittsburgh, and he was on the radio. And I want to tell you, it's one of the few times I ever turned the radio up full volume, because what I was hearing was one of those people, they talk in video about a camera loving somebody. The pipes he had and what he did with it. He came through that radio in 3 dimension. He was sitting in the car, and he was energized, and he was moving. And there wasn't an empty moment when his show started. It just kept going. He talked, but there was always something in the background. The dog was howling. He was beating on the telephone book, and he had a beautiful voice. He had a set of pipes that I would have killed to have. He was an immense talent.
The Cleftones and Little Girl of Mine.
Freed's initial audience was almost entirely black. The thinking was that the white kids would find it, and they did.
Ain't got no home or no place to roam.
He was playing the music with respect. He loved it, and made these kids who were vanilla, white bread, are suddenly banging at the Record Rendezvous and forcing the May Company that only carried Horace Heidt and his musical nights and Guy Lombardo, forcing him to put rock and roll in, forcing him to put Chuck Berry, forcing him to put Bo Diddley. And he was a Pied Piper.
I'm a lonely boy.
Teenagers loved it. For them, this back alley boogie and blues seemed to come from forbidden places where no adults dared to go.
What made Alan Freed so significant is that he was the disc jockey that brought rhythm and blues to the mainstream. He brought it to the public, the white public. Although he was not the first to play rhythm and blues, he brought it to the white mainstream public.
Well, I saw my baby walking with another man today.
Freed shook them all up with his first concert show on March 21st, 1952 in Cleveland. Some have hailed it as the birth date of rock and roll.
See you later, alligator. After all, crocodile. See you later, alligator.
After the Moondog Coronation Ball, there were a couple of stabbings. It was a riot. I have to remember that he expected to maybe sell 3,000 or 4,000 seats, and 26,000 people showed up and pushed their way into this arena. He wasn't a very popular guy with the fire department, the police department, the mayor's office, in fact, anybody in the city of Cleveland at that time.
When you call in your telephone request tonight, tell us that you're with us, because we are with you.
It was a new music, it was loud, and it was black for the most part. And those things gave rise to a lot of opposition from the white American mainstream.
Rhythm and blues is too black for racist America. It's too black to be marketed with any kind of certainty. So they blanch it. They turn it white. That's easy. We'll just give it a new name. Instead of calling it rhythm and blues, hey, we'll call it rock and roll.
Life could be a dream. Life could be a dream. Do, 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 shaboom. Life could be a dream.
The middle-class baby boom kids of the 50s liked to party. They liked to dance, and they listened to the radio. Through rock and roll, they soon had their own language, their own clothes, and for the first time, their own music.
And the fact that it appeals to young people, black and white, going through those changes in the body where the sexual desires are first coming in and running rampant through your system, and they turn to it. Important to this, so important, is the male guide, the adult man who is taking you through it. And it ain't your father, it's the disc jockey. The disc jockey is taking me like a big brother, like an adult who is taking me seriously. He's taking me into this world.
Come on, let me show you where it's at. Come on.
Hi, everybody.
All of a sudden, here comes Alan Freed, the champion of rock and roll. He was actually the biggest promoter of rock and roll in 1954, 1955, when it was just emerging.
Radio executives in the Big Apple were already tuned into Cleveland, and Freed was offered a spot on WINS radio in New York.
I like it like that.
He brought along hundreds of 45s. It would become the most influential record library in commercial radio, imitated everywhere. And it would change the sound of popular music in America and the world for generations.
Let me show you where it's at. Come on, let me show you.
Founded in 1925 as a community for the orphans of our fallen soldiers, the VFW National Home for Children continues to serve the needs of our military families. So in honor of Memorial Day, Buick, Pontiac, and GMC are donating $100 to the National Home for every car and truck we sell from now through May 31st. If you're at all serious about getting a new car, this would be a good time to do it.
We gotta be more efficient. What would Shuford do?
We gotta think big. What would Carter Litwin do?
What would Watkins Worldwide do?
We've got to be more nimble. What would those guys at Hornstein do?
Visa helps make businesses of any size more efficient, whether your company's big,
I got it,
or just your ideas are. Your business is your life. Life takes Visa.
As you can see behind me, the strata in the rocks marks some of the most historical events in the history of the world. The beginning of the dinosaurs, the end of the dinosaurs, the building of the pyramids, Napoleon invades Egypt, the fall of Rome, the last Hall & Oates album, the first Starbucks, and finally, Tom and Katie Holmes' new baby. As you can see, it's all behind me, people. Look closer.
Have to work in the yard and garden, but just can't stand the pain? Well, don't get sore. Get a grip. Stout's Back Saver Grip. This ingenious little invention quickly attaches to all your long-handled tools, immediately makes them more efficient, and eases the strain on your back. You'll be amazed at how much easier it is to shovel, rake, and hoe. The Back Saver Grip increases leverage, allows you to add more downward force, and have greater pulling power. It helps with other household chores too, like painting and sweeping. You'll feel the difference. The Back Saver Grip allows you to grip a tool higher on the shaft. You stand up straighter, in a more comfortable position, and avoid all that awkward bending, the primary cause of back strain. So, work smarter, not harder. Stay active and save your back. Get a grip. Stout's Back Saver Grip. Just call 1-866-654-1621 and get 2 for only $19.99. Or visit us on the web at backsavergrip.com. Stout's Back Saver Grip.
Evening in Tehran tonight, the American embassy is in the hands of several hundred Iranian students.
For 444 days, the world watched and the hostages waited. This is the full story of America's first battle with militant Islam, told by those who were there, based on the book by the best-selling author of Black Hawk Down. Guests of the Ayatollah. A special 2-night event starts Monday, June 26th at 8, exclusively on the Discovery Times channel.
Alan Freed was the radio DJ who introduced rhythm and blues to America's teenagers under the new label of rock and roll. And in 1954, he left Cleveland, Ohio, and moved his Moondog radio show to WINS in New York City. At a time when traditional music stations were dominant, Moondog mania swept New York.
Rock it and you rock it and you rock it around.
Freed led WINS from the basement to the top in a few months. Rock and roll muscled its way to the forefront of the music scene, the movie scene, and concerts. DJs were top dogs in radio. As leader of this pack, Freed was high profile. Freed may have been bigger than Elvis at this point. His outspoken advocacy of black music aroused the suspicions of the establishment, who didn't like the beat or the way teens were dancing to it. Freed became a primary focus for their fears that the country was going to hell in a transistor radio.
Freed's resistance came from just about anyone in any sort of power. Schools, local governments, churches, anyone whose job it was to maintain the status quo.
Parental America was very upset. People talked about you're on the path to hell listening to this jungle music. And white kids loved it because it broke the barriers. It put the boundary between my generation and your generation.
Rock and roll was a very strong force. The young generation wants their own sound. They want their own banner. Rock and roll gave it to them.
Freed's concerts always seemed to make headlines as thousands of teens began lining up hours before his shows.
They were in these really beautiful old theaters where they had a spiral staircase, and every 3 or 4 steps was another dressing room off to one side. And of course, the bigger your record was, the less steps you had to climb. It was nice. Those shows were, just the most incredible thing that a 15-year-old could see.
Let's go to the hop. However we feel, based upon the experiences throughout the country, that this rock and roll rhythm has been the seed of trouble, and we want to keep trouble out of Jersey City, Don.
You like music yourself, man?
I love music, and I love to dance, too.
Let's go!
Let's go to the hop. Let's go to the hop.
Freed's concert tour moved into the Boston area, and trouble came on its heels.
And he had been warned by the Archdiocese in Boston, as well as the police department, and to keep his show out of Boston.
Hello, everybody. How are you all? This is yours truly, Alan Freed. Get your dancing shoes on, and welcome to the Rock and Roll Dance Party!
The show had just started, And there was a lot of enthusiasm, a lot of electricity in the air when he came out and held up his arms and, said, "We're going to rock and roll tonight." People got out of their seats, and the minute people stood up, the lighthouse lights came up, and the police came out.
Several times during the show, the stage was mobbed. Freed had to come on and say, "Look, kids, get back in your seats," and the show would go on.
It was a moment that was pretty tense. And my father said, "No, everybody, you're going to have to sit down. We're going to have to be a little more orderly tonight. We're not going to be able to dance in the aisles, but we're going to have a good time anyway. But if the police would just turn off the lights, we get on with the show. We're going to have fun here. Nobody's going to get hurt."
But this time, the police said, "We're not going to turn the lights off anymore. We're going to keep them on." And that drove Freed nuts. And at that point, Freed made a comment to the audience. "It looks like the police in Boston don't want you to have any fun."
And finally, my father said, I think in an act of frustration, "Are we going to let this happen to us?"
The show finished, but it was, there was chaos throughout the audience. And as people left the arena, there were disturbances outside. Somebody got stabbed, a sailor, I believe. I don't even know if he was at the show. He got stabbed, and there were other disturbances. And what the police did was take everything that happened in that area that night, and they attributed it to Freed's show. Whether the people, the victims or the perpetrators were at Freed's show, it was all blamed on Alan Freed and rock and roll. The city of Boston indicted Alan Freed for inciting a riot, and they attributed his remark to the audience, "Kids, it looks like the Boston police don't want you to have any fun." They attributed that remark to inciting the chaos. And so he was actually brought up on charges, and he had to go to court, and it took him years and a great deal of money to get this resolved, to stay out of jail, because he was facing jail time had he been convicted.
When Freed returned home, he was fired by WINS Radio. Management claimed he had become too controversial and that the anti-rock campaign against him was hurting the station. Freed and his supporters felt the music was a fake issue. His real sin, they believed, was supporting music by blacks and introducing it to a white middle-class audience.
Thank you. Before we leave tonight, we'd like to say special thanks. We don't have much time to thank everybody, and especially to our friends in the music business and to our wonderful friends here and all of you out there for your great loyalty. This is not goodbye, it's just good night, and we'll see you soon. Thank you.
Freed landed on his feet at another station, but the knockout blow was not far off.
Can you believe it's been over 10 years?
It's time for me to move away from the game of basketball.
And it's almost 30 years since the heyday of disco. Relive the events you're most likely to remember.
I shall not seek another term as your president.
And those you want to forget. The tragedies, the trends, and the triumphs.
I've seen the promised land.
There's a lot of hope in the air.
Yearbook. Tonight at 10 on the Discovery Times channel.
No, something new. We've been there.
Okay, folks.
Why not make a smaller one? Hey, girl.
I often get asked how eHarmony works.
What actually got my attention was a profile.
It helps you to figure out you, then it helps you to find that person that you are most compatible with.
Then we use a scientific system to match you based on who you are at the very deepest levels.
You don't have to search. eHarmony does the
searching for you. And I think eHarmony does it better. Experience for yourself the magic and joy of true compatibility. Log on to eHarmony.com and get your compatibility profile, a $50 value free.
Ever had one of those days when you feel like the whole world is against you? For an Alaskan crab fisherman, it really is. You don't work this job, you survive it. Deadliest Catch Season 2. Tuesdays at 9 on the Discovery Channel.
If you could travel the world to decorate your home, what would you discover? A porcelain beauty inspired by treasures from the Ming Dynasty? A hand-painted mirror in a village nestled at the base of the Andes? Or a smart leather chair in the lobby of a London hotel? Discover these and more at Bombay, where right now, for a limited time, you can save 30% off regular price when you shop online or at one of more than 400 Bombay stores located throughout the U.S. Call or go online now for your free 30% off coupon. Act now and you'll also receive our free catalog. You can save hundreds of dollars redecorating your home. Call or go online now to bombaycompany.com/TV. That's bombaycompany.com/TV. Hurry, this special savings is available for a limited time only. Bombay. Call or go online now.
Pioneering radio DJ Alan Freed made a lot of enemies in the 1950s by introducing America's white teenagers to black rhythm and blues music under the new name of rock and roll. By the late 1950s, he had been driven out of his DJ job in New York City. But he had another for him. A rock and roll show he'd been hosting on a local New York TV station. One of the first guests was the wild child with the voice of an angel, Frankie Lyman, the former lead singer who would die of a heroin overdose in 1968 at the age of 26, had the audacity to dance with a white girl on camera. Instant cancellation.
Rock and roll singers and the pilot.
It was the beginning of a tumultuous period for rock and roll.
In the Senate hearing room.
In the late 1950s, the U.S. Congress, fresh from an investigation into television quiz shows, was about to set its sights on radio. Congressional investigators were turning their attention to a practice in the music business known as Payola, the cash, gifts, and favors that record promoters would lavish on disc jockeys to play the records they were marketing. It would become one of the biggest scandals in the history of radio. The chilled climate around rock and roll radio in 1959 made the annual DJs convention in sunny Miami all the more appealing to disc jockeys and record companies. By the time the convention opened, if a big market DJ had an itch, a dozen record promo men were there to scratch it. Record companies planned to mine the massive assembly of top-ranked DJs for all it was worth. And to them, it was worth its weight in gold records.
Greatest party I was at. Greatest flat-out party I was ever at. And I told my wife, I was married to at the time, that I was going down to speak on public service. I want to tell you, I didn't know anything about public service. I didn't care anything about public service. The only thing I wanted serviced was my person. Everybody was there, and a lot of people who weren't anybody's were there. There were disc jockeys from small towns, middle markets, and I don't think I slept for 3 days. I thought it was wonderful. I just thought, I have died and gone to heaven. They brought in hookers from everywhere. And I gotta tell you, as a kid, I'm saying, isn't this a wonderful world? How did this happen to me? I did get ready to come back to Cleveland on the third day, and the Miami Herald had a headline about that deep. It said, booze, broads, bribes, and I thought, oh my God.
I'm ready, I'm willing, and I'm able to rock and roll all night. I'm ready.
In February 1960, the U.S. House Subcommittee on Legislative Oversight opened an investigation of payola.
Payola was not illegal. Payola was a way of life. Record companies paid payola to get disc jockeys to play records. As long as the record companies and distributors reported that to the government on their books, it was a legitimate expense. We paid the disc jockey, or they had lists of disc jockeys in each city that were paid money. Why were they paid money? Well, that's anybody's guess, probably to play records. But that was not illegal as long as the companies put it on their books and as long as the disc jockeys reported it on their income tax as a payment. There was no federal law against it.
The payola hearings marked open season on the personality DJ. One of the first to be called was Cleveland disc jockey Joe Finan.
I took a lot of cash that couldn't be traced, but I took checks. And they read off the checks, and I was determined to tell the truth. And I did, and except I wasn't going to tell them the truth about Miami. I just wasn't. My wife was sitting in the back, my manager, his wife in the back, and I thought, I'll tell them everything I know about this, but if they ask me about Miami, I'm going to perjure myself. They didn't ask me. They asked the next guy. But I was the first one who was heavily involved. It was the beginning of the end for me as a disc jockey and a personality and a television personality in the Cleveland market. I didn't realize it at the time, but I wasn't worried about the right things. I wasn't worried about my wife's reaction. I was worried about the audience here in Cleveland. Wrong value.
Alan Freed's high profile as the nation's leading rock and roll DJ did not serve him well when investigators went gunning for headlines. All of them drew a bead on him. Alan Freed refused to testify before a payola-probing grand jury, citing the Fifth Amendment. Freed told newsmen he had never received payola, but had taken consulting fees.
I'd love to answer all your questions, fellas. You know, I like to be nice, but my attorney doesn't want me to say a thing. So I'm trying my best. I just can't say. I'm under subpoena here.
Did you go before the grand jury?
No, I did not.
Where Alan Freed got in trouble was the fact that he worked in New York, and New York State had a commercial bribery law which outlawed payola. So while he could not be prosecuted on the federal level, he could and was prosecuted on the state level.
Maybe things were said that weren't true. I wasn't there. I didn't read all the transcripts. I wasn't there, but I certainly saw the sadness in my father's demeanor and in what, not what became of him, but the fact that his one true love was playing this music. It was basically taken away from him. It was erased. And that was sad. That would be sad for any man, but for him, when he was really driven by this, I think it was the saddest day of all.
Later that year, a grand jury indicted 5 New York DJs, including Freed, on charges that they had accepted payola. Freed was fired from WABC. The top DJ on radio and TV, concert promoter and producer of movies, was booted without ceremony.
After he was fired, we went home and the IRS had seized our house based on filing improper income taxes because of allegations of income that was unreported. That's pretty amazing, where you haven't even proved on the one hand that you've accepted money, and for the Internal Revenue Service to suddenly take the position that you received it and you just didn't pay taxes and you evaded them.
And how long
He never stopped believing in what he was doing or what he had done. But over a period of time, this type of thing is bound to affect you.
I have enough friends in this world, and no one to turn to, and no one to love. And how long will it take? I'm weeping over.
He was just a forgotten man. And to this day, you're not ever going to make me believe that he died of anything except a broken heart.
When Alan Freed died, he was penniless. Didn't have a penny to his name. And people say, well, he made all this money along the way. What happened? And it's true that Alan Freed made money hand over fist. But money meant nothing to him.
He was very passionate about the music. That's the most important thing. He really cared about the music. You could tell that. And that was a good thing.
He said, there are a lot of people that would like to stop me and would like to stop the music. They might stop me, but they'll never stop the music.
I'm weeping over the man.
Good evening. In Tehran tonight, the American embassy is in the hands of several hundred Iranian students.
For 444 days, the world watched and the hostages waited. A protest that spawned an international crisis, a failed rescue attempt.
We left 8 great Americans dead.
And affected the outcome of a presidential election.
I don't think you pay ransom for people that have been kidnapped by barbarians.
This is the full story of America's first battle with militant Islam.
They were going to start sending pieces of my kid to my wife.
Told by those who were there.
They were not hostages. They were sort of guests in the building.
Based on the book by the best-selling author of Black Hawk Down. Guests of the Ayatollah. A special 2-night event starts Monday, June 26th at 8, exclusively on the Discovery Times channel.
Founded in 1925 as a community for the orphans of our fallen soldiers, the VFW National Home for Children continues to serve the needs of our military families. So in honor of Memorial Day, Buick, Pontiac, and GMC are donating $100 to the National Home for every car and truck we sell from now through May 31st. If you're at all serious about getting a new car, this would be a good time to do it.
Excuse me, sir. What's today's date?
The 12th?
The 12th of March, right?
No.
We should probably check in.
Large open-air atriums, because we want our guests to relax.
Hey, kids, come on, we're checking in now.
Embassy Suites Hotels.
That's why Geico.com is so simple. Or is it because you can chat with an associate if you need help and get a free rate quote in minutes? 15 minutes could save you 15% on car insurance. Simple as that.
Love it. That's going to be on the Good Guys Survey any minute right now. And surveying the baseball scene, I got White Sox postponed in Boston because of rain.
By the early 60s, most of the biggest radio stations around the country were ordering their DJs to play only the top 40 hits, the same songs over and over again.
And our head musical director, Joe Love Letters Contest, maybe. Upcoming, a reactivated smashback, Leslie Gore, It's Your Party.
Pack up all your cares and all.
Go, guys.
We'll say hi.
When Payola hit, radio changed drastically. Paranoia set in. I remember from being free to play what I wanted to play. New records, introducing new records, taking a chance. No more. We used to have record meetings. Even the records in the record meetings were pre-selected. We couldn't say, hey, what about this record? It had to be here. We're going to have 20 records. Let's select 10 of these 20 records. And then the program director would have the veto.
management said, okay, you can only say this at this time, you can only play this, you have to follow an A with a B and a C.
And this is when the whole industry started changing a little bit. That's where I put my fingers on it. It became more of a business. We were in the radio business, and then suddenly we became the business of radio.
I keep on dancing for Daddy's gonna turn the trick right now.
A new breed of radio DJ emerged after the Payola scandal. Restricted by the top 40 format, they relied more on their wits than on the music for entertainment. Hyper talk and gimmickry became the focus. With most radio stations playing the same music, it was left to the DJs to distinguish themselves.
Stations used to do some real crazy things, like you broadcast every day from high atop a billboard somewhere. You know, you set up, the billboard was on a heavily traveled street.
Up on a pole, underwater, on a Ferris wheel, and with a mouthful of marbles, they tried.
You could be a winner of the Musical Love Letters Contest, maybe. Upcoming, a reactivated smashback. Leslie Gore, it's your party.
Sleeping is the worst. It is the very worst, to tell you the truth. The carny usually closes down between 12:30 and 1 o'clock, and I just roll down this little devil here, all the flaps. I got little curtains I put across. You have to see it to believe it, the position I get into sleep.
We had hit lines. You know, our hit line's open now. Call me at 458-1624, and I'll play your record for you. Well, that was a bunch of bunk, because we knew what we were going to be playing for the next 30 minutes. And if that record they asked for happened to come up in rotation, that was fine. If it didn't, then they could call back and say, you didn't play my record. Well, I haven't gotten to it yet. You couldn't tell them that it was all structured for you.
I keep on dancing for.
That's Ronnie Spector, cousin. I mean, you can just picture her, Palisades Amusement Park, slithering beautifully, I mean, moving gorgeously across that stage.
Last night I took a walk after dark. I swing a place called Palisades Park. To have some fun and see what I could see. That's where the girls are.
Palisades Amusement Park was the precursor of the Woodstock type concerts. It was outdoors every Saturday and every Sunday from 1959 about to 1967. Cousin Brucey was on a huge stage at Palisades Park, which is this great amusement park on the Palisades of New Jersey. And I'd invite 10 groups and artists down. People anywhere from Tony Bennett to the Supremes, to Lenny Coco and the Chimes, Dave Clark 5, they all were there. And they used to lip sync their music in front of thousands of kids. I would put on costumes. I'd wear leopard skins. My dog dressed like me. I had shoes of leopard skin. My underwear, my jockey shorts were leopard skin. I wore a leopard skin tuxedo. My doggy had the same thing. And we'd walk on stage. It had a flair. It was showbiz. It was fun. And this was great promotion for the record companies. They would send their artists down from all over the world. Nobody would get paid. And they'd lip sync to the records. That's what I think of when I think of the 60s. Thousands of people in the sun, in the sunlight, and in the rain. They'd sit there because this was it. This was their family. This was their music. And rock and roll was at last coming out of the speakers right into somebody's knee. And then they'd go up and they'd sign autographs and they'd touch each other and talk to the crowds. Palisades Park was a wonderful experience for me, and I did that for more than a decade doing those shows. A lot of fun. Legendary shows.
While white disc jockeys stressed on-air gimmickry in the early 1960s, African-American DJs were honing a new style that would be revered and imitated for decades to come.
Essentially, CB radios were ways for them to pass the time, meet women, and avoid cops.
I thought that the CB radio was the white trash internet.
Where were you? Yearbook 1973, tonight at 10 on the Discovery Times channel.
This Sunday and Monday only at Circuit City's Red, White, and Blue sale, you'll get no interest till 2008 on all purchases $2.99 and up. Plus, all CDs are just $9.77 each. This Sunday and Monday only at Circuit City's Red, White, and Blue sale.
It's my own little world in there. I've got guitar lessons I've downloaded, chords, new riffs, all kinds of stuff. My airplane survival DVDs, they seriously saved my life on these long flights. I like to take tons of crazy photos. That's my dad sleeping. Oh man, that's my friend's video. He's insane. I'm kind of all over the place with my music. I like everything. Just get a little playlist and go ride with it. What else? Here's my page on MySpace. I love that photo. Whenever I get a new game, I always go online and I find out the new cheat codes so I could just beat it faster. Artists email me graphics for my snowboard line. Like, love this, lose that. Oh, here's this jacket I'm designing. It's got a gold satin lining. It's been a popular year for gold. I've pretty much got a random life. You never know where the snow's gonna fall.
HP Pavilion Entertainment Notebooks with Intel Centrino Dual Mobile Technology. The computer is personal again.
Professional growers know the secret to lush blooms and plump vegetables. It's in the roots. Now there's Root Blast Plant Growth Formula. The plant on the right grew 3 times bigger above the ground because its root system grew 3 times bigger below the ground. Root Blast targets the roots, stimulating them to grow bigger and deeper, providing the plant with more water and nutrients. Bigger roots grow bigger plants, bigger vegetables, and produce bigger yields. This pumpkin was grown using Root Blast. There's no mixing or repeated use. Just 1 scoop per plant lasts the entire season. Root Blast is ideal for flowers, vegetables, bushes, potted plants, and houseplants. Use it the day you plant seeds, when you put in your bedding plants, and sprinkle it around your existing plants. Garden professionals know the secret. Bigger roots grow bigger plants. Now you can grow like a pro with Root Blast.
Available in the lawn and garden section at Walgreens, Rite Aid, and Kmart.
Next on the Discovery Times channel, find out what we can learn about America's presidents from the way they hit the links. First off the tee, coming up on the Discovery Times channel.
Oh, well, I'm...
African-American DJs had started playing rhythm and blues on AM radio in the 1940s, blazing a trail for white DJs to follow. In the early 1960s, African-Americans once again helped to shape the on-air styles that later generations of DJs would emulate. Jack Gibson became the first black voice heard on the nation's first black-owned radio station, WERD in Atlanta. Tommy Smalls on WLIB radio in Harlem staged rhythm and blues concerts at the Apollo Theater.
You knew that I love you, oh, how I love.
But the most renowned black DJ of the early rock and roll era was Douglas Jocko Henderson.
Way up here in the stratosphere, you gotta holler mighty loud and clear. E to the yuck. Ho, says Jock. Back on scene with the record machine saying, "Goo papa doo, how do you do?" And luckily, it kind of caught on, you know.
So until tomorrow Tuesday, now your ace from outer space says, "Luca, poo all through, later gator, gotta cut."
If Humphrey Bogart were to play a DJ, he'd probably play Jocko.
Jocko Henderson had style. He had his own patois. And things that I can still repeat verbatim. It's Jocko, and I'm back on the scene with the record machine. Correct time now, 10:19.
He was really cool, man. And I used to listen to him, and my mom said, "What are you listening to up there? Shut that off." She was a Patti Page fan and all that.
In addition to all of his broadcast work, Jocko brought rock and roll to the Apollo Theater in New York. At these live shows, Jocko was just as big an attraction as the acts themselves.
First show we put in there, never saw a crowd like that in my life. We turned away over 100,000 people. And headlining that show was Mickey and Sylvia, Clyde McPhatter.
The first engagement that we actually got paid for outside of the city of Chicago was at the Apollo Theater for Jocko Henderson. It was just the most fun engagement that I've ever done.
The Apollo Theater made a rocket for me. I had to climb up a ladder to get in the rocket. It was about 10 feet off the ground. And, of course, it was held up by piano wires.
Big Bad rocket is cruising into space at 39,417 miles an hour. Confirm altitude 1,300,000 miles up.
A nice climb up on top, sit down, and the rocket would come down in the middle of the stage.
Brace yourself and look out!
The fire bombs, everything would happen, and, all the noise in the world. One night, I got in the rocket, and it came down, and halfway down, it threw me on the stage. And everybody thought that was part of the act. Thank God I wasn't hurt, but, I wasn't part, so I laughed with them. Told them the Russians must have had something to do with that. It was in the New York Times.
It's rocket ship time, and those on our board must be out of their mind. The rocketeers are lined up side by side, ready to take the most exciting ride from the Earth to the moon. We've got to go.
Jocko, with his rhyming introductions to records, was one of the most easily identifiable influences on rap. And DJs across the country say that the father of that tradition is Jocko Henderson.
Oh, it's Jock. And we're back on to see what the record machine.
Talking ooh, Papa, do, and how do you do?
And way up here in the stratosphere, got to holler mighty loud and clear. Eat-diddly-yuck. Ho, this is Jock, and I'm back on the scene with the record machine saying ooh, Papa, day, we're on our way.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to your favorite conversation.
Philadelphia was a big radio town in the 50s and 60s. Jocko Henderson and Dick Clark are two of the most famous DJs to come out of the city of brotherly love. But there were others who had vast followings among both black and white teenagers.
Speaking about cool,
Georgie Woods was one of the biggest in town, and the man Dick Clark relied upon to tell him which records were hot in the black community.
In 1953, when I came to work at this radio station, everything here was white. I'll put it to you like that. The janitor was even white. We came here. I think we had another couple of two black disc jockeys. That's all was here. And that's what we had. We had to overcome that.
Georgie was less the showman than Jocko. Jocko was the showman. He was the flash. He was the style. Georgie was the boy who lived next door.
Ah, Georgie Woods, the man with the goods. Ring the bell for Eileen, the rock and roll queen.
No, we need it so proud. We got to have it so.
Woods promoted shows at Philadelphia's Uptown Theater, a big stop on the R&B circuit.
So proud. Hey! We need it so proud. We want it so proud. We got to have it so proud. I want to get.
Now you can turn the radio on 24 hours a day and hear a black person doing some broadcasting, but back then, it wasn't like that. We had to pick at the radio stations. We had to come out here. We weren't even allowed out here where we are right here on the street here to even be on the street after the sun went down. We had a park over here called Woodside Park where blacks couldn't swim in the pool, right around the corner here. Well, to be out here at night, coming to work at 6 o'clock and going home at 10, you got a problem out here because the police didn't know what you was doing out here. So they'd line us up against the wall and stop us and ask us, what are we, and we'd tell them, I'm coming from work. They said, well, no restaurants open this time, stuff like that. That's what got me involved with the NAACP and involved in demonstrations and picketing, things of that nature because of the conduct of the police who was very, I would not say brutal, but they didn't allow you to be in certain areas at certain times of the day. And they wanted identification. They'd line you up against the wall. So I see people today walking down the street who don't know what it was like then compared to what it is now. Because you couldn't do you just couldn't do those kind of things then.
People get ready. There's a train a-coming. You don't need no baggage. You just get on board. All you need is faith to hear the dealers humming. Don't need no ticket. You just thank
tried to not be a role model, because I don't even know what that is. I just try to do what I think is right, and hopefully somebody else will follow. But I tried to give an example of what a disc jockey should do when he's in front of that microphone. You don't go in there just cut and jive all the time and pop your fingers and do that. You know, you got to go in there sometimes and be serious too. Although you're playing music, you're trying to entertain people, but you have to have something a little bit stronger than just the music.
I don't think we have too many radio announcers like George, who came from behind the mic, went out into the community on his own, not showing up just to show up because someone contracted him to do it. I'm talking about on his own, and actually help build the community, help to stop the gang war. And a part of the things of that era that was going on, helped to build OIC and to help with the freedom, the monies and funds for Martin Luther King's freedom marches and so forth. No, I don't really see a lot of that. And I really would like to know if it's there. I'd like to know about it because I can't find it today.
Founded in 1925 as a community for the orphans of our fallen soldiers, the VFW National Home for Children continues to serve the needs of our military families. So in honor of Memorial Day, Buick, Pontiac, and GMC are donating $100 to the National Home for every car and truck we sell from now through May 31st. If you're at all serious about getting a new car, this would be a good time to do it.
Hi, Richard Thalheimer here to share with you the number 5 reason Ionic Breeze is the most popular air purifier in America. It's the only one where you never have to buy a replacement filter. That's why most air purifiers don't work. People forget to change the filters, but Ionic Breeze has a permanent filter, and you'll be amazed to see what it collects on that grid, and so happy it's not in your lungs. Please, let me send you an Ionic Breeze for your own 2-month home trial. I guarantee you'll sleep better or feel better, and if not, call me for a complete refund. I'll even pay the shipping both ways. You have nothing to lose and everything to gain.
We all deserve to breathe fresh, clean air, especially in our homes. With the Sharper Image Clean Air Now campaign, you can. For the very first time, America's most trusted brand of air purifier is offering an additional Ionic Breeze Quadra for free. The Ionic Breeze charges incoming air, so pollen, dust, dander, and other irritants attach to the collection grid. Then air passes through the new Ozone Guard grill coated with Premier Catalyst coating, recognized by the EPA as a newer way to reduce air pollution because it helps convert smog and ozone into pure oxygen. You have to move air to clean it, and the Ionic Breeze cleans and circulates air with no fans, no filters, silently. Order today and we'll give you a free $69 bathroom Ionic Breeze to keep small rooms fresher 24 hours a day. We'll even pay your shipping so you can use the Ionic Breeze risk-free for 2 months. If you decide to send it back for any reason, we'll pay that shipping too and keep the bathroom Ionic Breeze as our gift. But that's not all. For the first time ever, call right now to find out how you can get an additional Ionic Breeze Quadra for free. That's right, it is amazing. A free Ionic Breeze Quadra.
To order, call 1-800-351-4453.
In Tehran tonight, the American embassy is in the hands of several hundred Iranian students.
For 444 days, the world watched and the hostages waited. This is the full story of America's first battle with militant Islam, told by those who were there, based on the book by the best-selling author of Black Hawk Down, Guests of the Ayatollah. A special 2-night event starts Monday, June 26th at 8, exclusively on the Discovery Times channel.
We call it tasting time, where we salute all of our blue-collar workers, all of you who earn your bread by the sweat of your brow. I want to let you know today that you are somebody. You are responsible for the wheels of this world going around.
AM radio had always been a male-dominated business. But by the mid-1960s, some distinctive female voices were beginning to break through.
My DOT drivers and both my...
Martha Jean the Queen Steinberg was among the first of the rhythm and blues DJs. She married a Jewish horn player, had 5 children, and one day strutted her way into the radio studio.
I used to say, if you a woman in this business, you got to think like a man, act like a lady, and work like a dog. And that's just the way it is.
There was nobody before, and there's nobody after Martha Jean. She's in a class all by herself.
She started in the early 50s at WDIA in Memphis. And she did it by boldly transforming what was supposed to be a homemaker's show into a hot-cooking music feast.
They used to call me Princess Premium Stuff. Because if you were black and you were on radio, you had to have a handle. You'd either be Mommy or Daddy or Aunt Jane or something. I told them, I said, look, I'm not going to be any Aunt Janes, you know. So they said, okay, we'll call you Princess Premium Stuff. Well, one day, you know, I said, I'm just tired of this Princess Premium stuff. So I said to Honeymoon was working on the board, and I said, when you introduce me, you do something that rhyme with Jean other than premium stuff. Well, what is the program director going to say? I said, I don't care what the program, I said, try it. So he said, and now, Martha Jean, the Queen.
A clean-up woman is a woman who gets all the love we girls leave behind. The reason I know so much about her.
In the early 60s, she became the queen mother of Detroit radio, introducing R&B to blue-collar workers in the Motor City. She addressed auto workers by name on her Taste in Time show and dispatched wives to the factory gates on payday so that the grocery money wasn't squandered on the way home.
Which would you prefer to be right?
Detroit Rebellion, it took us all by surprise. Somebody just put a torch to some building and it started to burn. And the whole city was burning and looting and tearing up things, and it was a shock to everyone, so nobody knew what to do about it. They didn't know where to find whatever it was. The leaders of our city, they were invited to get on radio and to try to appeal to the people, and it didn't work. So they sent for me. And because they knew I was talking to the blue-collar workers. I was talking to the people. I was talking to the welfare mothers. I was talking to their children and making them all a part of mine. You know, we were family. And I understood and I related to, and they related to me. So they listened. So I went on and I stayed on radio 48 hours, and we were able to help tone this city down. And that's quite a blessing. It was a blessing. When people responded, then every time there was a problem right after that, they would call me.
And share with black folks, not of kin. I say now people must prove to the people
a better day is coming
for you.
It doesn't end with telling the time and introducing a record. You must be involved with your community. You are involved with your community. When the radio DJ or the radio personality developed, he became, in many instances, as important, or very close to as important as the music he played. Radio is a personal communication, community device. We're in bed with people. I mean, it can't be more personal than that. We take showers with people. We're in cars. We go to stores with people. We go to school with people. We go to work with people. We're there. It is the first mass communication medium that has become so personal. All right, what can I do for you tonight, Joe?
We'd like to hear one of our favorite songs here. Rock and Roll is Here to Stay by Danny and the Juniors.
And who you want to dedicate to Rock and Roll is Here to Stay?
Just everybody who loves Danny and the Juniors.
I love this technology. I don't understand it, but I love it.
At a time when it seemed like the glory days of the AM radio DJs were over, America heard the howl of a mysterious new voice who seemed to come out of nowhere.
It was meant to be that.
Discovery HD Theater. This summer,
I almost died.
They've got one goal: to survive.
Before I get in the car, I say a prayer.
See it. Hear it. Feel it. Baja 1000 Desert Endurance, an HD original, tomorrow night at 8 on Discovery HD Theater. To get Discovery HD Theater, call your local cable provider today.
We all deserve to breathe fresh, clean air, especially in our homes. With the Sharper Image Clean Air Now campaign, America's most trusted brand of air purifier is offering an additional Ionic Breeze Quadra for free. The Ionic Breeze cleans and circulates air with no fans, no filters, silently. The Ionic Breeze has even earned the seal of the prestigious British Allergy Foundation because it's been proven to reduce airborne allergens. Order today and we'll give you a free $69 bathroom Ionic Breeze. We'll even pay your shipping so you can use the Ionic Breeze risk-free for 2 months. If you decide to send it back for any reason, we'll pay that shipping too and keep the bathroom Ionic Breeze as our gift. But that's not all. For the first time ever, call right now to find out how you can get an additional Ionic Breeze Quadra for free. That's right, it is amazing. A free Ionic Breeze Quadra.
Call 1-800-742-2959.
1973 was the year of big lies.
Well, I'm not a crook. When he said I am not a crook, it was pretty funny.
He has to be a liar. He's a politician.
Big hair.
You had the shag, you had the big old giant afro.
I just remember women going, ooh, that's sexy.
And big buildings.
They want to prove theirs is the biggest. That's all it's about.
Where were you? Yearbook 1973. Tonight at 10 on the Discovery Times Channel. Next on the Discovery Times Channel, find out what we can learn about America's presidents from the way they hit the links. First off the tee, coming up on the Discovery Times Channel.
Uno, dos, 1, 2, 3, 4.
Are you ready, all you fans out there in out there land?
Watch it now, watch it. Here it comes, here it comes.
You got the rope back, and I say we gonna rock and roll, baby.
Watch it now, he gets you.
He was a white rapper, kind of a blend of Dr. Joyce Brothers and Howlin' Wolf. He was rocking. He was boogieing out at midnight every night. Wolfman, ow! Coming from the deserts. People had not heard anything like this.
That was how, he created this whole thing.
And people would hear, especially kids, they would get under their bedclothes, they'd have their little transistor radio, and they'd have that little white earpiece in their ear, and they'd hear Wolfman coming out and says, "Get naked, baby, ow! Put your hands on the radio, ow!" And these kids had never heard anything like it.
It's time for the biggest, baddest party in the world. So get on up, turn it up a notch, and get ready to boogie, baby. Ow!
People didn't know who he was. They didn't know what he was.
They didn't know if he was of Spanish descent, Chinese, white, black, or otherwise.
They didn't know whether he was a Martian.
Was old Wolfman rather fight and switch, baby?
And he was this incredible influence on people, and yet nobody knew who he was or what he looked like. And that was all a part of the Wolfman mystique.
Watch it now, watch it, here you go. You got it, you got it.
When I was growing up, I was in Brooklyn, New York, man, and I was in a little teeny. I used to go down the coal bin in the cellar underneath my apartment, and I had 2 little turntables, and I used to practice being Jocko Henderson, you know, or Moondog. Ow!
And this is where he got into this whole radio. It was like, you know, he extracted himself from reality and went down into this imaginary world. And till the day he died, that was his whole deal. He just wanted to be radio. That was his escape from everything. Radio was all he loved and wanted to be. And he started listening to people like John R., you know, on WLAC. He could, you know, pick him up down in Nashville. Man, he couldn't believe the power of these stations. He's listening to Del Rio, Texas. He's there.
Border radio was one of American broadcasting's most outrageous and outlandish phenomenon.
Border radio stations broadcasted from Mexico. Free from U.S. government regulation, their powerful signals could be heard across the border and across America. And the border radio DJs enjoyed a freedom their regulated friends in the States could only dream of.
The whole radiated power of this station was upwards of 1 million watts. This station was so powerful that the stories are legendary. Birds flying near the antenna would come near the antenna and psst, they'd fry. Light bulbs people would run their electricity, their light bulbs in Del Rio off the radiated power of these border blaster radio stations. People told me stories. They could hear the radio station on their bed springs, because the bed springs as metal would just attract the radio signals. People heard it on barbed wire fences. My favorite story is that one guy told me that he could actually pick up the border blaster on the fillings in his teeth, so he could just open his mouth to hear the radio. So these stations were literally the most powerful media on Earth at that time. I mean, you think about the unregulated internet today and how powerful that is. Well, back in the 1930s and the 1940s, border radio was the internet. It was outlaw media that covered the world.
The lawlessness and freedom of the border was a catalyst for the final stages in the metamorphosis of Bob Smith, a.k.a. the Wolfman.
He heard the border radio all the way up in New York. He could hear it because it was such a powerful station. He says, I want to be on the most powerful radio station on Earth. So he drove from Shreveport down to Del Rio, Texas, crossed the river, went into Mexico, and made this station a fort. Made XERF, the most powerful radio station on Earth, a complete Alamo-like fort. And from there, Wolfman sat down at midnight and created one of the most incredible disc jockey persona in history, the Wolfman. That's where the Wolfman was born, behind the barbed wire out in the Chihuahua Desert in northern Mexico.
Hot, boys, go ahead, dance around, baby, dance around. Ha, baby.
The Wolfman emerged with his hands on the controls and as king of border radio, with the capability of long-range vocal assault on the U.S. airwaves.
So he got a similar deal to what he had going at XERF at a station called XERB in Tijuana, Mexico.
You taking the old Wolfman Jack show from the Big X over Los Angeles. 50,000 watts of soul power, baby.
It was the mighty 1090. 50,000 watts of soul power over L.A.
California was the closest target of opportunity for the Wolfman, and everything went well for a while.
The same thing happened to Wolfman that happened to so many border radio entrepreneurs, is that his Mexican partner just cut him out of the deal. His Mexican partner just said, I'm going to make all this money you're making. So he just said, no more Wolfman, bye-bye.
Are you ready, all you fans out there in out there land?
After he lost his platform in Mexico, the Wolfman was soon able to stalk America from within.
You got the Wolfman, and I say we gonna rock and roll, baby.
Good evening. In Tehran tonight, the American embassy is in the hands of several hundred Iranian students.
For 444 days, the world watched and the hostages waited. A protest that spawned an international crisis, a failed rescue attempt.
We left 8 great Americans dead.
And affected the outcome of a presidential election.
I don't think you pay ransom for people that have been kidnapped by barbarians.
This is the full story of America's first battle with militant Islam.
They were going to start sending pieces of my kid to my wife.
Told by those who were there.
They were not hostages. They were sort of guests in the building.
Based on the book by the best-selling author of Black Hawk Down. Guests of the Ayatollah. A special 2-night event starts Monday, June 26th at 8, exclusively on the Discovery Times channel.
This Sunday and Monday only at Circuit City's Red, White, and Blue sale, you'll get no interest till 2008 on all purchases $2.99 and up. Plus, all CDs are just $9.77 each. This Sunday and Monday only at Circuit City's Red, White, and Blue sale.
Every woman should learn the early warning signs of gynecologic cancer. Know your body and take control of your health. I did, and it saved my life. Log on to the Women's Cancer Network for a free confidential assessment of your risk for developing women's cancers.
Next on the Discovery Times channel, find out what we can learn about America's presidents from the way they hit the links. First off the tee, coming up on the Discovery Times channel.
The radio personality known as Wolfman Jack had been broadcasting from the powerful superstation south of the U.S. border. But in the early 1970s, the Wolfman gained a foothold in Southern California.
So Wolfman wound up pulling a shift on KDAY, and he was living an extravagant lifestyle, and he was hurting. His bank account was hurting, and he was really in trouble trying to, as he put it, he was living in Beverly Hills, but he was putting a brown paper sack lunch together and going down and pulling a radio shift to KDAY.
So this is the operator.
Are you French operator?
This is a correct call for Wolfman Jack.
I love you, operator.
He was broadcasting up 50,000 watts all up and down the coast. I mean, it covered, 13 western states, 2 Canadian provinces.
The audience he was hitting were all these hot rodders, all these kids in the valley would listen to his music. He had tremendous influence over the Californians of that generation. And one of the people he really had an influence over was a kid who was growing up in the valley named George Lucas.
Hey there, little Red Riding Hood.
Filmmaker George Lucas contacted the Wolfman days after he was driven out of Mexico and into the poorhouse. Lucas was making a movie about small-town California, with the Wolfman portraying a DJ who affected the lives of local teenagers.
Wolfman was so thrilled to be a part of American Graffiti, which is really a hymn to the magic of the magical DJs, and particularly of Wolfman Jack. And Lucas not only hired him at $1,000 a day when Wolfman's bank account was hurting to do this film, but when the film started to take off, Lucas gave Wolfman a piece of the monies that were generated by the film. And that made Wolfman a nice pile of cash. He said that, told me that it made him about $500,000 back in the when the film came out, which was, for him, it was great. And it got him out of debt, and it really set him up so that he could focus on his career and really helped him get through the latter part of his career.
While life at home was getting rowdy, it was wartime in the jungles of Vietnam. But the Wolfman was able to lend some radio relaxation time there as well. He was heard on 1,500 stations in the U.S. and 600 armed forces radio stations abroad. The Wolfman considered it some of the most worthwhile duty he had ever done.
He was on the radio over there, and they'd be out in the trenches listening to this crazy guy, and he was not imposing to any of them. He not pretentious in any way, shape, or form. They just felt a oneness with this guy. That's my buddy, you know? That's my buddy. Not everybody's buddy, that's my buddy. Him and me, I mean, you know, we could be palling. We could be sitting here at this bar together. And in reality, we could. Because the Wolfman was that kind of guy.
This cat's name is What's Happening.
Stones may break my little old lush top sourpuss bones, but them bones never hurt a new one.
He legitimately cared about people, and he was somebody who could talk to you and make you feel better about whatever problem it is you had, whether it be on the radio or one-to-one in person. And I think that he was a friend to everybody is probably his #1 legacy, and everybody felt that. It wasn't something that, yeah, I remember the Wolfman. No, it was, yeah, he was a very special human being.
And the name of the record is Hot Buttered Bun. On the Wolfman Jack show from the old Sunset Strip.
People like Howard Stern, the stuff he's doing now is everybody's getting crazy, but what Wolf was doing was similar as far as a shock value. Like I said, you know, are your little peaches sweet? You know, the double entendres. He loved double entendres. His influence was that these kids would just listen to him and giggle and have a good time. You could listen to the Wolfman, and I mean, no matter how you felt, no matter what was going on in your life, you listened to the Wolfman, you felt good. You had a good time. You could not laugh or not get a smile on your face and just enjoy it because you knew this guy was having a party and having a good time. That was his whole deal. He was having a party. This is just a big party. The Wolfman's out here. Ah, whoa,
Hot voice there, baby. No matter what's going on, no matter how tough the times, we're Americans, we're gonna roll with it, baby. Gonna take care of business.
Wolfman was everybody's radio guy. You know, in New York, you had Don Imus or Cousin Brucey. You know, like I said, in Cleveland, you know, you had, or in Chicago, you had Larry Lujak or Dick Biondi. You know, you had this guy that was your guy that you just had to listen to, whether you be a kid sitting there, you know, with the radio under your covers. But the Wolfman was everybody's guy. And he inspired a whole genre of radio people to get into radio. You talk to probably 90% of the people that are in radio today that are disc jockeys, radio announcers. It was because of Wolfman.
Wolfman and all the great DJs, the ones who've passed on, they haven't really passed on. Because you know, when a radio signal is broadcast, it keeps going. I mean, radio signals, the words and sounds that are broadcast on radio keep going through the stratosphere. And who knows, in future generations, we may be down here on Earth. We may be listening to whatever sort of weird radio systems we have then. We may be able to hear Wolfman Jack say once again from the ether, "Ow!"
Are you ready, all you fans out there in out there land? I say it's time again. Have mercy, let the congregation say, "Amen." It's time for the biggest, baddest party in the world. So get on up, turn it up a notch, and get ready to boogie, baby. Ow!
The rock and roll DJs would be heard. Through the 60s, they would play to an increasingly rebellious audience. In the 70s, they muddled through disco, and in the 80s, shock radio would make headlines. But even that ground had been cleared and prepared by those who came before. The rock and roll DJs would never be as powerful and as prominent as they had been in the 50s, but they would remain an influence on the lives of teenagers and continue to reach their listeners late into the night.
Kennedy